is the Revisionary Podcast with your host, Juan Carlos. The Revisionary Podcast.
Welcome to the Revisionary Podcast. I'm your host, Juan Carlos. Man, I gotta be honest with you guys. I really, really love that song. It's funny because I was looking for something that was catchy and that was sticking in your head. And the very first time I heard that theme song, I was singing it for the rest of the day. I was like, this is the one. I knew that was the one that I needed to use for this show. And it's perfect because a little bit about me. I'm actually a proud Dominican American, first generation American, first person in my family to actually be born here in the United States. And this song is perfect because it uses the Latin style, bachata in the background with English lyrics, which is exactly who I am as a person. Not only that, I'm a New Yorker. I was born in Harlem and raised in the Bronx. So I'm a proud New Yorker, and I come from a stand-up comedy background. So that's how, I got here on this podcast. And if you're listening, it's because you're here for the Revisionary Podcast. And the way this podcast works is that I bring on guests who have an opportunity to tell us a nonfiction story about their lives in which they discuss things that they would have done a little bit differently. After they discuss them, they have an opportunity to retell the same exact story, except this time they can change any facts that they want. Afterwards, we discuss the impact that those changes would have had on their lives. For our first guest, on our very first episode, we actually have the very funny Mr. Gianmarco Soresi. I love working with Gianmarco. He's a very funny guy, and he's done it all. He's been on TV, he's been in movies. He even had an off-Broadway play called Less Than 50%, which was awesome to watch. Now, you get to hear him retell his story about how it all got started. So without further ado, let's see if we can get a hold of Gianmarco. Hey Gianmarco, how are you?
Hello, I'm okay.
Oh, I guess my energy level caught you off guard, huh?
No, I'll try to match it.
No, you do not. Don't worry about it. I know it's like kind of early in the morning for a comic.
Yeah, 2 p.m.
This is like what? This is like normal people 4 a.m. time for comics.
Exactly.
No, I totally get it. First and foremost, thank you for coming on to the show. Our Revisionaries are really excited to hear from you.
Yeah, my pleasure. I would love to revise a lot of my history, so I'm very happy to do it.
It's funny. I don't normally go into this, but you do talk a lot about like your background, and your religious upbringing. Is that the guilt from that's having you revise everything?
Just lots of mistakes. I mean, I don't know if it's a Jewish thing or it's just who I am. I have a lot of like, I should have done this. I should have done that. Life's a bitch, as they say.
No, I completely get it. But that's what makes this fun. Like, we get to delve into that past and you get to create your alternate reality. I don't know. Maybe you come out of this a millionaire. What do I know?
Yeah, sure. Millionaire. If I get to revise, I better be a billionaire, baby. I mean,
Whoa. At the end of the day, you do stand up. Let's set these more realistic goals. Go ahead. Why don't you tell us, what have you been up to lately?
Well, been trying to just do stand-up comedy wherever I can. I'm doing kind of every 2 weeks, I do an hour on Zoom. Outdoor shows with Stand Up New York, and I'm gearing up. I'm going to be filming a little stand-up special that'll come out. Just a 30-minute outdoor special with a bunch of coronavirus material that's going to become dated in 2 days. So I figured I'd get it down on vinyl before on
vinyl?
I mean, no one's going to listen to it, so whatever form I choose.
Got it.
And yeah, that's what I'll be. And doing TikToks every day. Every morning I wake up, I get my TikTok in before I do anything else. It is a nightmare.
So wait, let me ask you this. How do you come up with the idea for TikToks? Because I've tried, and I think it's a certain creativity that's different.
Maybe I just started doing. I put up old jokes, and I do single jokes to the camera, add the captions, because that's what I had on file. I sometimes, break out of that and do something new, and it always bombs. It bombs every single time. I did one creative TikTok that did well, where it was like
which one?
It was about like cleaning groceries on day 1 of coronavirus and being like very thorough with it, and then day 43 was like done, and that did well. But I tried a lip sync that took me days to figure out, and it bombed. It worked for Sarah Cooper. It did not work for me. What's nice about TikTok is that, like, when you put up a tweet and it does badly, you feel it. You look at it, it has zero hearts. TikTok, just like the method of seeing how it's doing, it disappears into the ether if it doesn't do well so much more quickly. Where Twitter, I always have that feeling like, oh my God, everyone I respect saw this tweet and didn't like it. You just feel the failure more viscerally.
I get that, but I find that, like, with TikTok, generally, right? Now it's become a little more mainstream. A lot of people are using it, but it's really for that younger generation that has made me realize how old I've become, you know what I mean?
You're a young guy. Look, my dad used TikTok before I did. We're entering a zone where I think adults have wised up to technology, and people like my dad sends me TikToks all the time. So I think we're going to get to a point where, like, it's no longer going to be like young people do tech. Everyone's going to have tech.
Right.
And I don't know, you look at, especially in our industry, you look at people in their 50s and 60s, like Steve Martin, for example. He just did this tweet that went viral. That was very funny. And it required a real knowledge of Twitter. Now, I'm sure he has an assistant or whatever, but I'm saying, like, people who stay in the game later in life, they have to figure this out. They have to figure it out. And Steve Martin did. If Steve Martin can do it, you can do it.
That's a lot of, confidence in my abilities. But, Steve Martin and we've never been on the same page. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. But you can't blame it on age. I'm saying, like, Steve Martin is an 100-year-old man. And
all right, fine, Gianmarco. Let me like fail my own way. You know what I mean? No, I'm just kidding. All right. So why don't we go ahead and jump into this? And why don't I'm gonna pass the baton to you. The stage is yours. Go ahead, Gianmarco. Tell us your story.
I was a theater kid growing up. That's how I met all the ladies. And in high school, I was like, at least in my grade, I got all the leads, all these things. So what happens? Do you know what? When you do a show, a play, or a musical, they have a strike, and that's like the day you take down the stage, you take down the lightings, you clean everything up. Sometimes you do the strike the next day after closing, but we did it the night of. So it was kind of a theater tradition that when the show was done, everyone would stay around and basically sleep over at the school. But we would take everything. You'd work for a couple hours, and then you would have a big food and party and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
You know what's funny? Can I tell you something about that real quickly? I, too, was a theater kid.
Very nice.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I ended up on this stage. I don't want to talk about it, right? But my school, we actually had a separate, like, stage crew that did everything. So the actors and, everyone in the cast, we did everything we had to do. Then we left while stage crew did all the striking.
Absolutely. We had a stage crew too, but the actors were expected to put in, but not very proud. I was notorious for not helping at all. I did the thing that I would help with. Again, I'm very bad with my hands. It's no excuse though. I was lazy. One of their jobs was it's like a long stick with a magnet at the end, and you just kind of collect all the stray screws and nails. And I was the lazy piece of shit that everyone's doing all this stuff, and I'm just like do. Oh, I got a nail. Da, da, da. I was the lead. I'm tired. I'm a star. But this was sophomore year, so this was before. I don't think I had a big part at all, and I went to school, high school in D.C. This private school called Georgetown Day School. And it was like it had a good arts program, and it was also known, at least in the 80s, as we were the drug school. Like, at least in terms of private schools. I think the bar is where, like, Georgetown Day School, that's where pot was popular. Like, everyone was smoking pot. People were doing drugs. At least in the 80s and 70s, teachers would smoke pot with the students. It was hip. Now it changed though. I mean, this is back then though. So like it changed. It got to a
Right.
point where that went away, but that was still our like reputation amongst high schools, and we still probably had more potheads than the average school. Nothing crazy though. I mean,
Right.
it's a good. When Obama was deciding where to send his daughters, it was either my school or Sidwell Friends, and he picked Sidwell. But that's to say, like, it wasn't such a seedy reputation. It was just
Okay.
like that was our history, and we had more potheads than most.
I mean, Malia would have fit right in.
There you go. No comment. So what we did is it was tradition from the beginning of time that the night of the strike, people would get fucking wasted. You drank in the parking lot. People smoked pot. They did wheat brownies. Now, I was a very clean kid. I didn't do a lot of drugs. I drank occasionally. I don't think I smoked pot until I was 18. But everyone's doing it, and you feel lame. And I remember my buddy O'Neill. We were in the same grade. He was like the tech guy, and he came up to me. This is what we did when you started drinking at 15. He came up to me. He's like, Gianmarco, smell my breath. And he just had a shot of vodka. And I was like, oh my God, dude, what? So I ended up, there may be 60, 70 theater kids there taking down the set, a bunch of actors, maybe 50. Let's say 50. And everyone's drinking, smoking pot. And so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna drink. Someone had weed brownies, so I had a weed brownie. And I got pretty wasted.
Okay.
And again, this has been a tradition forever. But this year, one of the juniors was so drunk and such a prankster, he pulled the fire alarm.
Oh.
Yeah. So we all and it was fun in the moment. We all went outside. There was no fire. We all played theater games in the parking lot, and we were all wasted. Truly, it was a heavenly night. But because that fire alarm was pulled, there were a lot more people asking questions. I don't know if the fire department came, maybe. I think they did. So people were asking questions. Like the fire department asked questions, schools asking questions. And essentially, it got busted. 3 weeks after the fact, we heard that the upperclassmen, so the seniors and juniors, were called into the principals and we were like, okay, but it's okay. It's just the upperclassmen. And then, they found out who brought the weed brownies, and those people got 2 weeks suspension, which was huge.
Wow.
Huge. Especially for a school where, again, most of the kids graduated and they went to great colleges, and a 2 week suspension was just a huge deal. This did not happen a lot.
So those kids went from being able to go to Princeton and Harvard to having to settle for Williams and Colgate.
There you go. Exactly. And then it just it started trickling down. And soon they started to ask questions about the sophomores and the freshmen. And there was this big thing where we'd have secret meetings, me and my friends, and we'd be like, okay, guys, we're not going to say shit. All of a sudden we're it's as if we're in a prison situation. We're like, guys, omerta, don't be a rat. You can't be a rat. All of a sudden people, just mostly a bunch of white kids suddenly taking on what we think is kind of ratting out and just we learned it from movies.
Right.
And the director of the theater program, she knew all this shit was happening. Everyone knew. This wasn't a secret, but their jobs are on the line, so they had to investigate it and go sorry, guys. And they basically got me and all the sophomores this big meeting where we had all agreed we wouldn't say anything.
Right.
And they're going around the room one by one, and they're saying, tell us, did you imbibe any alcohol or did you do any drugs? And one by one, they go, no. One woman even had an excuse. She said, I'm on bipolar medication, so I literally can't do it. And we all did it. And they go to me, nope. And then they go to my friend Taylor, and she goes, I had a bite of a pot brownie. And
so hold on for a second. I'm going to stop you for a second here. So you guys, obviously, because you're listening to this podcast, you can't see the video, but Gianmarco just did the perfect crying face for that emotion. I just need you guys to be aware of that.
And you have to know that, like, this friend, she had one bite of a pop brownie. She wasn't even wasted. She took one bite. And so she started crying and like fucking dominoes. This person said, I drank too. The woman who said she took the bipolar medication, she's like, I was lying before. I didn't take my medication that day. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, you rats. I'm not going to say anything. And the guy who's in charge of tech, another teacher, he looks at me and he mouths, we know you did it. And I'm looking and I'm like, no way am I coming forward. These fools, these are fools. They're confessing. They don't have proof. And everyone's confessing. I don't say a word. But then after the meeting, I crumble inside myself and I go to the director and I'm like, I did drink a little. And I'm going to come forward. I just didn't want to do it publicly. And I crumble. And my dad picks me up from school. I tell him. He's furious at me. He just yells at me. And he was a cool dad. He didn't care that I drank. He cared that I drank on campus. Which, again, like, it sounds bad that it's on campus, but this was the tradition. And I was a good kid. So we all confess. We're waiting to see what our punishment is. Meanwhile, the seniors gather us all together again. The seniors gather everyone in the theater program, and I go in the room, and there's the two drug dealers from school, and the seniors trying to instill in us again this you don't rat out your dealer culture. And he's like, "Hey guys, just want to talk to you. You don't need to name names." So all of a sudden you got kids just dealing with a drug scandal. This was the first time I ever did pot in my entire life. And now they're telling us protect the dealers. And so eventually what happened is they interrogated us one by one. Someone said that I brought alcohol, which I did not. And that was the big thing, because if you brought alcohol, that was a week suspension. You brought pot, that was a 2-week suspension. And ultimately, there were so many people that got in trouble that they put 40 of us just on probation, which meant we were allowed to leave campus. And so they took away our leaving campus privileges for a couple of months. Now, the reason they put us on probation was because at the time, you did not have to report probations to colleges you were applying to. Because this school, every grade's 120 people. They don't want to hurt their acceptance records by damaging all these kids' permanent records. However, this was my sophomore year. My senior year, when I was applying to colleges, they changed the rules. So you did have to report probations. So I had to write every college I applied to a personalized letter saying that I drank on campus. And in the letter, I try to explain the context without being defensive, but ultimately, me, who's a generally good kid comparatively, who I mean, not in terms of morality, but in terms of drinking and smoking, I was a pretty nerdy, nebbyish kid. But now every college I apply to, I have to write saying I drank on campus. And, that's certainly not the way you want to lead your applications, even though this whole college system is full of crap, and every kid's going to college and drinking and doing terrible things and joining a frat and committing sexual assault. But no, you drink in college, in high school, now you're a bad person. I applied to mostly art schools, and you could say it's because I lack talent that I didn't get into a bunch. But I'm convinced based on the people I know who got into NYU, for example, that I did not get into NYU because of this drinking record. And I think a bunch of schools, it affected me getting into colleges.
So that's funny, because this is something that ultimately affected your career, because had you been admitted into Tisch, you know what? Never mind. I'm going to take that back to Marco.
No, I know. I
didn't mean it like that.
No, I do. I mean, look, I don't think I would have gotten into Juilliard because of it, but NYU or Northwestern, sure.
Right.
And I got into 2 big art schools, and I picked the wrong one. But, this was a big... I think about it often because I think of this school. I think about the hypocrisy of the fact that this was the drug school. I think about the teacher, the principal who gave me the probation. He was notorious for, in the 80s or whatever, smoking pot with his students when he was a young 20-something teacher. I remember getting drunk with one of my teachers a year later on a field trip. And it's just this is a thing where the school should have expunged our records. If they changed the rules later in the game, the school just should have made a little bit more of an allowance or figured out something. But I think the onus was on the school as opposed to this inane punishment that affected the trajectory of our lives.
Wow. So let me ask you this. So it sounds like you feel like you shouldn't have been punished at all for this.
There can be plenty of punishment, but first of all, obviously I have so many problems with punishments for substance use in a society that, the idea of you're going to punish a 15-year-old kid for drinking while their parents fight in the kitchen drunk on their third glass of wine on a Tuesday night is insane.
Well, let me ask you this. What do you think, what about it did you think actually alarmed the school? Was it the actual drinking, or was it, the fact that it's quote unquote illegal and you were breaking the law, or was it, that there were other people staying over? Also, I never asked this outright, but I'm going to assume this was a co-ed sleepover.
Yeah, it was at the school, and I don't know if anyone actually, fell asleep, but it's one of these things your parents pick you up or you leave at 6 a.m, 7 a.m. And this was... I blacked out once. I kind of browned out this night. It was one of my only brownouts, which that's the term, right? For you're you're in and out.
Listen, I don't know what kind of student you were. I was an exceptional student, but yes, that is the term. Not that I know from personal experience, all right?
Sure. So yeah, there could be, I have no problem with, some kind of discipline, but when you're dealing with colleges, this world is so disgustingly set up in the way that colleges can influence so much of your life, and to dole out this punishment for a 15-year-old when you have a school where kids were drinking every weekend. This was a huge thing. You had dealers on campus, and you're gonna. Right. I think the reason the school dealt with it, I don't think it was the illegality. It was more just someone pulled the fire alarm, so people knew something was going on, and I think the school sold us out. I think the heads of the arts program, who I admire in many ways, but I think ultimately they knew all this stuff was happening. They knew. Right. And again, there's part of me, I'm I don't blame them for keeping their jobs, I guess, but they knew, and then they move it on to us. You don't, there's no way you don't know that 50 kids taking apart a set aren't totally wasted. And it's funny, I look back on it, the night itself was so much fun. You miss the days where there really is a thrill when something feels you're going to get in trouble for. We would sneak into the locker room and sneak in the back, and someone brought a Gatorade bottle with some alcohol in it. There was a certain kind of fun to it. So yeah, that's my tale.
First off, thank you. That was wonderful.
Sure, I'm glad.
So this for me is the fun part. This is now my favorite part about doing this podcast, right? Mm. Because you get to retell that entire story with facts that you made up. You get to revise it, that's what makes it revisionary. The only thing is I will ask you before you retell your story is, if you get a chance, if it flows into your narrative, tell me more about what you think your college experience would have been like at the end of it. I'd like to hear more about that.
You're going to hear a disgusting fantasy.
Oh, Lord.
Not disgusting in a vulgar way, just it's when people tell me you're doing so well, and I'm if you knew where I thought I'd be right now in my life, I'm the greatest failure in the entire universe.
The counter retort to that is, I look at you and I go, want to trade comedy careers? Exactly. He just laughed, by the way.
All right, you ready to do this?
Yeah, let's do this.
So I was in a show. The show was called, this is true, I forgot this part. It was called On the Razzle by Tom Stoppard. And I played a British butler. And the night of the strike, I got wasted. I was always a clean kid, but that night I said, you know what? Leeds, you work hard, you party hard. And I drank the whole Gatorade bottle of vodka. I ate half a pan of Pop Brownies. I made out with the costume designer who was a senior. It was sick. And that night, I pulled the fire alarm. Some other kid wanted to do it. I said, no, I'm going to do it. And I did it with a kick. I didn't even pull it. I kicked it. And we went outside. We played games. It was a good time. Couple weeks later, people start asking questions. They start saying, who pulled this fire alarm? There was no fire. Someone says there might have been drinking. Someone says there might have been some pot. So what happens is they gather all of us in a room, and they ask us one by one, did we do it? And initially, everyone said no, no, no. Then one person cracked. She said, I took one bite of the Pop Brownie. Soon Emily cracks. Soon Brycey cracks. Soon Mike cracks and O'Neill cracks. These are all their real names.
Oh, legal disclaimer.
I didn't say last names.
These are all fictionalized people.
Then they go to me and I say, And I see the tech director and he looks at me. He mouths, we know you did it. And I gesture with my thumb across my neck like, I'm going to kill you. And then they go up and they say, we know you did it. And I say, prove it. You say one word, I'm going to go to the principal and say that you knew about all this shit and you should get fired and you should lose your tenure and you should go to court. Get out of my face. And they can ask me all they want. And I'm going to say, no, I didn't do it. And they can't do anything because they don't have proof. And I know this because I had loving, caring parents. This is the made-up part, right? I had loving, caring parents who told me, you don't have to confess to a crime if they don't have proof. And there's no lawyers involved, and I didn't swear an oath, and I get away with it. And then a couple years later, all my friends who, confess like a bunch of fucking losers, they get in trouble because they were put on probation. So they have to write all their colleges a letter about their probation. And they're upset about it. And I say, don't worry about it. I got your back. And I go to the principal and I say, Principal, I've heard rumors that in the 80s, you smoked pot with all your students. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to open up all my friends' permanent record files. You're going to get out some whiteout, and don't tell your secretary to do it. You're going to do it. You're going to white out every single one of those probations, or I am going to post on MySpace, on AIM, on the Skonex. I'm going to post on all of it that you smoked pot in the 80s with your students. And guess what? Your career goes bye-bye. Bye-bye, career. And he's going to go, he's going to start crying. And I'm going to go, stop crying, you sniveling bitch. And I'm going to take a dump on his desk. And I'm going to say, that's what you get because I knew what you were going to do to me if I wasn't so cool and smart and knowledgeable about the law. And all my friends are going to get off. And I'm going to say one more thing before I'm going to say to the principal, you know what? I'm going to drink right now in front of you. And I'm going to take a shot in front of him. And I'm going to smoke a blunt. And I'm going to put it out in his forehead. I'm going to say, you were going to ruin my life. And I'm letting you off easy. And then once everyone's expunged and we get into our colleges, guess what? I'm going to post it anyway. I'm going to tell everyone that he smoked pot. Because these are bad. These are bad people looking out for themselves over their students. And I don't stand for that. Meanwhile, I got into NYU. What do you know? I got into NYU, but here's the crazy thing. When I go to New York, I start taking UCB classes my first week before school starts. Guess who my teacher is? Amy Poehler. Guess what? The next day, she gets Saturday Night Live. But she thought I was an incredible improv student. So she says, you know what? I want you to be my comedy partner. And I go, okay, I don't even go to NYU. I don't even start, okay? They give me my tuition back because I know how to negotiate again. Now I'm on SNL with Amy Poehler. I have skipped the entire system. I'm the youngest cast member on Saturday Night Live. Pete Davidson is considered an old man when he starts SNL compared to my SNL career. I go from there. I do Parks and Rec. Instead of Aziz, I'm that part. It's very funny. It's so good that they do a spinoff for my show.
I'm loving it. Keep going.
I toured the country. John Mulaney is my opener, but he's more of a driver. I let him do a couple minutes starting my shows. I get Netflix specials. I sell at Madison Square Garden. You know what? I find out. Louis C.K. becomes my friend, and I tell him, I say, Louis, I want you to treat women well. And so he never does the bad thing that he does. So Louis is fine. Mulaney's my opener. I'm a star. Eddie Murphy gets offered $70 million to do a stand-up special. He says, no one wants a stand-up special from me. We want another one from Gianmarco. And I say, okay. He gives me the $70 million. They remake The Nutty Professor with me. And Eddie Murphy says, that's better than mine. And I am known as the greatest comedian of all time. That's what would have happened.
So, just a few things here. Number one, on the off chance that you hear this, John Mulaney, just know I'd be more than content just being the warm-up comic who doesn't even have to open for you. You know what I mean? Warm up the crowd before your real comics get on stage. I'm not riding with Gianmarco on this. That's first off. Second of all, can we talk about how a lot of people would have probably changed the fire alarm situation, but no, you went full 360. You're like, no, would have done it anyway. Love it. Love the confidence. And I love that, at the end of the day, you get to wear your Clark Kent and you stop Louis C.K. from, ruining his career from all that bad stuff. That's great.
I did not just ruining his career, but also from doing the bad things.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It's great because you stop that. Think of all the countless women, who get to not experience that.
Sure.
That's better.
Sure.
Okay. I love that you stuck it to NYU and you're like, don't need you. Mic drop.
Mm-hmm.
Mic drop. You took a job away from a minority, but that's okay.
I know. I had that thought in my head, but I used that $70 million to create diversity programs for every improv school in America.
Okay. Here's the thing, though. The guy's from North Carolina. Do you know how many minorities are in North Carolina? He has it hard enough as it is.
Yeah.
I love Aziz. Again, on the odd chance that you listen to this, Aziz, I'm a huge fan. I'm advocating for you to keep your job, all right?
Sure. I would give him a role. They can all open for me. Mulaney is the only white opener I had. Otherwise I spread the love.
Oh, man. I love that story. I love what you did there. Okay. So let's jump back in here for a second. I got to be serious for a second here. So you've obviously added a lot of changes, and it seems like you've given it some thought.
A lot of thought.
It's like, that felt like 12 years of thought just like sitting on your chest and you just letting it all out. So I'm going to ask, how would those changes have affected who you are today? How would they have affected who you are as a person? How would you think you'd be, obviously you'd be more successful, but would you be the same Gianmarco that you are today?
We all in life, I think, go through different times where the system betrays us. Because I had divorce, my parents got divorced before I was, aware. So in a way, the family system that some people get to enjoy, some people even my age, their family's still together and they believe in it. I know that system's broken. I go to school and I know from that experience, this system is broken. People in positions of power will throw you under the bus, will make decisions that have long-term consequences on your life. So maybe in a deeper way, maybe if things had worked out, I wouldn't be quite as cynical or skeptical. I mean, cynical is kind of the negative side of skeptical, but I think it's good to be skeptical. I think when people found out about like the college scandal, the recent one with Lori Laughlin and all that stuff,
Right.
like some people like go like, oh, what? And it's like, yeah, this system is disgusting. It's the same with the police. It's same with the government. It's like these systems are disastrously broken and corrupt, and so many people get screwed over by them. So in a way, like this was an early formative experience of like, oh, these older people screwed me. I have to be more careful. I have to like look out for myself a little bit more. So yeah, do I think this other fantasy version, who knows if I would have had more success or not? I think I might have, if I had gone to NYU, it creates a better network of people. Kind of, you just know so many people within the industry. And that helps.
Absolutely.
It's like when you're trying to advertise comedy shows and you're like, how does this show get into fucking Time Out New York every week? Well, it's because they went to college with the head editor of Time Out. So yeah, I think it would have helped in that sense. But hopefully if I have some kind of success in life, it will be informed by, understanding the hypocrisies of the world, and hopefully that making me a better comedian because I'm able to see them or identify them or call them out. And I think whenever you get screwed in life, you get a lot of material out of it.
Well, it's funny because that's actually the next point that I was going to bring up. So, just for some background knowledge, I've known Gianmarco for a few years now, and we've worked together countless times. He's like I will say this openly and publicly, so you don't believe me because this is now recorded. Like, there are certain comedians that, no matter how many times you see them perform, you enjoy watching them do stand-up. And for me, Gianmarco is really one of those. I enjoy watching him every time he performs. And one of the things that I do notice is that you use that skepticism. It's like I find that it's a huge part of your voice, and and you bring it out in different ways, including in that play you wrote that I went and saw you in.
Yeah.
You like, there's an element of that you brought into it. So I almost wonder what your voice would have been like if you didn't have, formative experiences like this, that showed you, as you say, the hypocrisy of the system and that everyone's looking out for number one.
Yeah, since you can't change the past, I try to think that, okay, it's given me this uniquely sharp edge that I like to use, and I think I like, because I'm smiley on stage, or it's right. I think it can surprise people. You don't necessarily know I'm going to be a kind of more dark comedian once I go up. You right. brought me up on stage. I haven't done it on stage, but it's a joke I've been meaning to do. Do you remember how you brought me up once?
In Yonkers, right?
You said...
I remember this.
Joke. You went up and you're like, all right, guys, we got our headline. I'm really excited. Let me ask a question real quick. Has anyone here seen CBS's Blue Bloods? Silence. What are the movie Hustlers with Jennifer Lopez? Silence. Okay. What about this? And what my least memorable credit? Netflix's Bonding? Nothing.
Love that show, though.
Okay, well, this next guy is from all three of those things.
No, you know which one? The one that got really weird was because I remember doing that, and I ended it on the baby bottle pop.
Oh,
I was like, he's the baby bottle pop guy.
That's even worse than Netflix's Bonding. Baby bottle pop guy. It was so funny.
I knew as soon as you brought it up, I was like, I know exactly what he's talking about. Oh man, good times. First and foremost, I'd like to thank you again for coming on the podcast.
My pleasure.
I'm sure everyone's going to enjoy listening as much as I enjoyed having this conversation. Now, here's the thing. There's one last question left about this podcast. Like, this is the last segment. I didn't tell you about this because I like to catch people off guard, to get a genuine response. I'm not trying to dive too deep into your childhood, but if you could tell us just one story, one quick story or one quick moment from your childhood that every time you think of, brings a smile to your face, or, what I mean, or just generally brings a general sense of happiness.
A smile. I thought you were going to say like when you said story from your childhood, I was already thinking of like some of the saddest stories from my childhood, and you're like, oh, that brings a smile to my face.
No, happy moments. Let's end this on a happy moment. I like
Okay,
happiness.
my parents were divorced, but my dad was very fun for when I was between the ages of 0 to my sister being born. He was a very fun guy. It wasn't my sister's fault. It was more about the custody battle with my sister's mother that made him dour. But I was really into wrestling, and my dad, like, he would put 2 mattresses in the living room in the middle of everything. Like this was not good in an aesthetic sense. And I would just wrestle with him, and I would do like, I would just probably hurt him, but I would do like, jumps off the couch and leg drops, Hulk Hogan leg drops. And one time I did face paint like Sting. And his girlfriend at the time, who I was close with, who ended up being the mom of that sister he had the bad custody battle with. But back when it was good, she put me in. Do you know Sting from WCW?
With the white and black face paint. Yeah, I remember him.
And then she made my dad like also Sting, but with yellow and red face paint. And and like we filmed it. I gotta find this video. But like we did like a wrestling match. And I took the top of a trash can and I smashed it on his head. And he did a good job of being supportive of the fact that I like to perform. And I like that idea of being a wrestler. So that was a lot of fun.
I love that. So I'm gonna ask you, if you do find that, that footage, can I share a clip of it on the Instagram? Of course.
I'm probably gonna be going back towards the end of the year, but I will find it because I want it for Instagram posts,
Okay, perfect. I think that's a great memory, honestly. I've heard a lot of good ones, but that's really, really good.
Thank you.
Before I let you go, do you have any last words for the revisionaries?
No, just find me on online so you can see, all the things I will want to revise in the future.
Where can they find you?
It's just my full name at Gianmarco Soresi, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Gianmarco Soresi. Look at the title. Spelling it is the worst.
All right, we'll do that. So again, thank you again for coming on. We really enjoyed your time here.
My pleasure, dude.
So without further ado, have a good day.
Peace.
The Revisionary Podcast.
Wow. That was a wild story. You know what? I have no words, but I really, really enjoyed that. And I want to thank all of you again for supporting us during our first episode. It really is special when you put something together and people come out and support you. So from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank all of you. Please, please, please follow this podcast on Instagram. Is the Revisionary Podcast on Instagram. Also follow us on Twitter is Revisionary Pod. Or you can follow me personally. I'm Juan Carlos Comedy on Instagram or J Carlos Comedy on Twitter. In addition to that, if you want to email us and, give us any feedback or just talk to us or just reach out to in general, you just want to say hello, please feel free to email us at revisionarypodcast@gmail.com. And also, I'd like to start a tradition where we support organizations or charities through this podcast. So, I want to put a few goodwill out into the air. Usually, I'm going to pick charities or organizations that are related to the story or let the guests choose one that they're passionate about. In this case, Gianmarco has selected Action Fund NYC because, he's really passionate about helping those protesters. So if you can support them in any way, shape, or form, that would be wonderful. Other than that, I want to thank you again for listening, and I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe, so make sure that you don't miss any episodes. Take care.
This is